So what we got here is a wheel arch repair. We've got a steel wheel arch coming up and around and down. We filled it. It's all been blocked. And we tried to use a sealer over the filler work and whatnot. And we put a color on it. And we had issues where we had little lines, like crackle splits appear. So obviously the reducer in the base coat that we went to put on softened up that sealer and ruined it. So I don't know what that's about, but we'll find that out later. I'm not going to worry about it right now. So what I did is I took some reducer and we just washed the panel of the truck off. And after we did that, we went over the whole panel. We spun it with a 400 again. Now, sometimes you want to use a 500 or 600 grit, depending on the paint and the products you're using. We went with 400 because we're using matrix. We're using a matrix color on this base coat, and basically they tell you 400 to 500. And as soon as you start spinning, your 400 paper becomes 500 pretty quick. So once you do the whole panel, now the nice thing about that is we had a couple of spots we noticed we didn't really like, and that gave us the opportunity to repair them, to sand them a little bit smoother. So what I decided to do then, because I was all out of the sealer that I like to use, I went ahead and put on some of this. This is a urethane high build primer. Now this is not the same as Cree 321 epoxy. The high build of that is quite thick, where this stuff is basically a 2K urethane primer. If you put 3 coats on, let me see if I can catch that. You can see there's a touch orange peel. It's super tiny. It sands off pretty easy, and I'll show you that in a minute. Now what we did have, if you come up here, see if we can catch it. You can see a line. You see that line in the light? There's a line right through here, like a sag. It's actually where it reacted on us. Now there was a much bigger one here, and that's gone. We can paint right over this and we won't have any issues if it's prepped to the 4-500 that the paint requires. Now this stuff also requires, I think, 350 to 400 or 500 grit. I can't remember. I think it's 350 to 400. At any rate, at 400 we know we're good. So let's see if we can capture that. I think you can see there's a line running right through there. And I'm hoping this will show it even more. You see it? Now you can see it. So what this particular primer does, if you go ahead and do the 3 coats, puts a little bit of thickness on. All we're doing is using a cheap Durablock. With 400, we're going to go crisscross, just like blocking anything else. And we can go this way a little bit. We're not going to keep going. We're going to crisscross back down here again. But this should be enough to show you. So those are, all those little dark marks are low spots, like little low spots in the pit. So all we got to do is sand till that vanishes, and that will give you a perfectly flat surface. Now I left this side because I didn't want to keep the video too long. You can see all those dots. Now I did 3 coats to make sure that I'd have plenty. Now if you do break through, you can always use a little bit of sealer, or just spot shoot a little bit of primer on. But check that out. That is smooth as can be. Now you do see those 400 grit sand marks. We're not going to worry about that. That's about where I'm going to stop. And obviously I got to keep going. But I mean, within 20 minutes or so, you've got the whole panel blocked. Now when I'm done that, I might actually take a short stroke DA, a palm sander. We'll throw 400 on it. We'll do those lowers. And then that'll be enough to dull our paper off a little bit. And then we'll basically go over the whole thing real quick. And again, we're going to go back and forth in that same angle. We're going to avoid this edge. And then we'll come over this edge edge after, we'll use that slightly duller paper and go over the edge. Same with around there, down through here. You can also use a red Scotch-Brite, which should be enough. Just make sure you change it out. You're always using one that's sharp. Now, it's not just about blending in. Now, this blends into the blue panel like flawlessly. There's no feel. You won't see that whatsoever. But you do got to sand all the way back again. Because when you feel even back here where we didn't prime, there's a, you know, it feels almost like there's rough dust on the panel, but what it is, it's overspray out of this. So this, you can see, is about as smooth as an eggshell, I guess you could call it, right? But that'll sand smooth quick, where what happens here, there's not enough liquid for it to melt in, so as it gets dustier, it just sits on top. So we do have to resand the whole panel. Now, another thing we're going to do, because we've had a mess up in our booth here and we had to mess with this, and I'm sanding it now. Now, this stuff by hand mostly falls right to the floor, but there's going to be some in the air. We are going to have to clean the booth, and as much as it sucks, we're going to have to pull the plastic and re-plastic at very least, the back half of the truck. Now, this is a work truck. If this was a show car, you're probably going to plastic the whole frickin' mess. So I ran a tack cloth up around the areas. I wasn't picking up much, but this surface right here is absolutely terrible. So like I say, at the very least, we want to do the back half of the truck. And it's almost too bad the truck wasn't spun around the other way, because we could re-plastic the back, not worry about the front, because, well, the fan would take that away. And, you know, the air doesn't shoot dust all over the place. It takes it in the direction where it's going, right? But anyway, that's where we're at. Pure Reflections 401 with 404 hardener. And it's called a DTS urethane primer. It does not high build like the Cree 321. What's that other one that we like to use? There's a few from Evercoat that go on really fat and thick as well. Everybody's calling it slick sand now. Hang on a second. So that's what we used right there. I got primer all over it so you can't see it. Here's the 405 hardener that goes with it from Pure Reflections. Anyway, that's what we were using. I've had on and off luck with that sealer, so let me know if you've used it, but I can't seem to get that to do what I want it to do. And behold, Evercoat Feather Fill. This is the one I like to use. Been watching a lot of videos and guys are using, I think it's called Slick Sand or Optus something or other, and I haven't used those, so I can't speak for those. This stuff here, though, you can throw it on real fat, block out quarter panels. I've used it on like 8 or 9 foot Cadillac fenders, and it works real slick. So I showed you a couple of the primers and whatnot, and I'm not going to recommend that Luma base yet, not until I figure it out. Maybe I got a bad batch or something like that, so I'll give it a fair shake. But I've done 4 jobs. 2 of them got fisheye right away, right in the Lumicore itself, and it shouldn't have. And then I had a couple other issues with it as well. So this stuff is fairly inexpensive as far as a 2K primer goes. I like it. The only downside, because it's urethane, you can't paint right over it, and it does tend to leave little tiny nibs after it's done, even if I put it through a filter. And I mean, maybe that's just in the air or whatever, so it is what it is. So you do got to sand this. I haven't had a lot of luck with throwing a sealer on and painting it. A few times I've done that, and usually what I'll do is use one of my epoxies, and we'll thin it down a little bit. And I can usually do that, and then say throw, like if I'm doing, I find it works better for me at least if I'm using a single stage, because I can throw it down, let it sit for whatever the TDS says, and then we'll just go ahead and coat right over it. They'll chemically bond, you know, and if it's not 100% perfect, like it kind of depends on the job you're doing. But I'm starting to learn that, you know, anything that seems like a quick way generally doesn't work too well. So I'm probably going to default to doing this, because this stuff, like I say, it goes down pretty slick, goes well. It's a urethane, it's a 2K. As far as I'm concerned, it will seal it off. TDS sheet says it will. So this should be more than enough for this truck. And how long will this repair last? Realistically, the way everything is done in this repair from start to finish, you'll have to check out the other videos for that. I'm going to say this fender repair is probably going to last longer than, the bottoms eventually will start to rot out, possibly down in the corner here. Now this truck's super healthy around the gas cap, so no issue there, and we've never had to fix it. The rest of the truck from here forward is actually really, really good. So this repair is probably going to outlast the rest of the truck, or at least as long. And the key to that is to keep all the sand and gunge out here. We took about 4, 5, 6 pounds. I don't know. There was a lot of, the junk came way up into here, all the way up. I've taken a lot of dirt out of vehicles. I've never seen anything like what was thrown up on this side. So it had some minor repairs at one time, but I don't think it would have rotted out so quick. So even though this truck gets oiled every year, as in an oil undercoating, and the guy's pretty religious about it, like even if you pull your tail lights, you can see in here under the overspray, all that lumpy crap, that's all oil. But it gets to a point where it's dry and it's like a sand. If you throw oil over that, it's not going down into the metal. It's just sitting on the sand. What I recommended to the customer, I was talking to him already, basically take his pressure washer and blast all this crap out. Now you can go in here and you can shoot up over that wheel arch pretty good if you don't want to do it from the bottom with your oil. But I recommended he go in there on both sides and blast as much mud and junk out as he can. Let it sit in the sun for a few days. Do this late in the summer. And then at least in the fall when you get it oiled, the oil's going to go in. Now, some people say, yeah, but don't put a bunch of water in there. Look, the water gets in there when you're driving around in the rain. But if you want to get the water out real quick, reach way up inside with some WD-40 and spray around the fenders. That will not put a coating that protects long term, but it displaces all the water and moisture out and eventually evaporates, and it won't affect any oil that's getting shot in there later. So there's a point to when you keep oiling your vehicles where it just becomes a sandy, gritty, oily mud, and next time you oil it, the oil sits on top. So you're not doing your vehicle any favors if you're just adding oil to the mud bath. It does not soak in. I've had vehicles come in and you take a scraper. I don't want to get my hands all goopy or whatever, but you scrape that off. It's dry as a bone underneath, and sometimes you'll find rust underneath, especially if you've got these newer GMs with the frames they make. Make sure they're clean before you oil them. They seem to turn into crispy critters pretty quick. Anyway, that's it for this video. Just wanted to share, this is a good way to lock everything in, do a repair, make it smooth, especially if you do something where you're having a reaction of some sort. This stuff isn't so strong that it'll bury everything, so a reaction could come through the primer, but then it would let you know exactly where you've got to fix. But I mean, like I said, we washed her all down, sanded her all, pretty much started it over, so we're covered. This stuff stayed on, and it's a urethane, and if that's true, then when you do your base coat, clear coat, which is also a urethane product, you should be fine. Thanks for watching.